Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Joe McIntosh, and I will be the moderator for this NUSU presidential election for the upcoming 2022-2023 academic year. As we begin this debate, I would like to acknowledge that we are in the territory of the Robinson-Huron Treaty of 1850, and that the land on which we gather is the Nipissing First Nation traditional territory and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe. Today, we are hosting a debate for the candidates who are running for the position of president. The candidates are Riley McEntee and Keegan Legier. This debate will consist of the candidates saying their piece on why they are running, and they will be answering questions from both the elections committee and later those who have sent questions in. The format of this debate will be as follows: opening statements, role-specific questions, general questions, and student questions. For each section, the opponent will be given the opportunity to also answer the question. In terms of keeping track of time, Jill Alick, our office administrator, will be holding up colored paper to signify how much time is left. The yellow paper will mean that there is 30 seconds left, and the red paper will signal that time is up. Candidates may be the only people to see this should Zoom not show Jill's camera on this webinar. For questions coming in from the live stream, you can send them via your student email to info@nusu.com. Now that we have outlined this debate that will take place, I will now invite Riley McEntee for opening remarks.
Hey, thanks, Joe. So my name is Riley McEntee. I am a third-year political science and philosophy student. I really just wanted to take this time to talk about how my values and my personal life really impact and shape the platform goals that I chose, being equity, accessibility, and fiscal responsibility. The first one, under equity, it really hits home. I started transitioning back in March 2017, 5 years ago. Happy anniversary to me. And it was hard. It was difficult. I faced a lot of hurdles, mostly pretty much everything short of physical assault, you know how things go up in the north. But it really shaped me into who I am today, because I got to experience what life is as a woman and how the experience, just things in general, pretty much universally. There's a lot of things I know that most men can only imagine. And by then living as a man for the last 5 years, I have pretty good insight to what that's like. And then add on the fact that being queer up here is a unique experience. I firmly believe that all of the experiences I have all put together really help me in the equity department. I care a lot about a lot of this stuff, and it's rampant. Inequities are everywhere. And by having this specific personal experience in these two major regards, living as a woman and a man, I think this gives me a lot of insight to the things that need to change at our school. Under accessibility, specifically hybrid learning. My partner, phenomenal man. We've been together for a little over 2 years now. He's a student just like me, same programs. Back in first year, he's got a knee injury. And because of that, it is remarkably difficult to get to some classes sometimes. By having the hybrid learning model, we are able to keep it so that he can go to class, whether at home or online. And I see no reason why this has to change. It gives you the chance to go to the classes that you're paying for, maintain the same education, because let's be honest, notes from a friend are not the same as being in class. Lastly, fiscal responsibility. We're short on time, so we'll keep it short. I'm from a lower middle class, and I know what it's like when money is hard. I'll make sure that you see the impacts of it.
Thank you, Riley. Keegan, it is now your turn for opening remarks.
Hey everyone, I'm Keegan. I'm running for president. I'm running more so this year. I know some of you might remember I ran last year as student life and I was not successful. So I'm running this year hoping to be successful, because I feel as the president of the Nipissing University Student Union, I can make changes that students will actually see and feel every day, whether that be just something small as in changing up how the online classes are given, or a resource that they can use, whether it's peer tutors, peer support groups, where they can go sit down and go through their materials, or something bigger like trying to implement a better health insurance for students, or trying to find those type of resources where students who come from a lower class, like Riley said he did, and as I did as well, where we might not be able to afford personal insurance. We have to rely on these insurances. So I want to come in, make a difference for the students, and make Nipissing go up in, as cliche as it's going to sound, in the Maclean's top 50 universities in Canada. I want them to be as close. I want us to be as close to number one as we can get. So that's kind of why I'm running, and those are my goals for being here. Is I want to make the school somewhere we all want to be, not somewhere we feel like is our second, third option, and we had to come to. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up will be role-specific questions. Questions will be asked for your role specifically from the election committee, chosen at random from a pool of questions designed for each position or for the position. One question is asked per candidate, and a question will be chosen at randomly out of the hat. The other candidate can also choose to answer the question or pass. And we will begin with Keegan. The international program is expanding at Nipissing University. How will you ensure that you advocate and support this group of students?
That's actually a pretty good question. Growing up, I used to work a lot with the international students, whether it be in high school, whether it be through even middle school, helping them do EAL classes and all that. So for me, it's a big one that we still offer those resources where if their language skills aren't there, we offer them the help to make them stronger. We offer them the help so that they can feel that they're communicating well with others and realistically helping their education pursue, which is what ultimately they came here to do. Whether that be bringing an EAL specialist to kind of come in, help them with their language skills, help them with those language barriers, because realistically, we all see language barriers in our everyday life. You go to the grocery store, even in North Bay, you see the French community there, you see the English community, you see them try to communicate just to find a simple product and they can't get it. So if we can offer resources to our students such as that, as little as it may sound, it will make a huge difference to them in their integration into the community in North Bay and Nipissing University.
Thank you. Riley, would you like to answer?
Yes, please. Could you repeat the question, please?
Yep. The international program is expanding at Nipissing University. How will you ensure that you advocate and support this group of students?
Awesome. So I feel like with this, similar to Keegan, language skills is a huge one. I think that something that would be a huge help is if they're coming into first year, connecting them with people who are from similar cultures and or countries that are in the second, third, fourth year. It's likely that their language skills have probably also developed at least a little bit to points where they can navigate going grocery shopping. They can navigate the website, things that are necessary as a student that we all take for granted. But I mean, if it's your second, third, even fourth language, sometimes it is a lot. And with it expanding, definitely trying to connect them to people who have been in their shoes. As someone who works in peer support, having similar experience is huge. Going through the same journey is massive. By having that specific non-textbook, but like I literally was in the same position a year ago, they're in such a position to help. So trying to find ways to advocate for them, finding volunteers, or even just little, not pamphlets, but almost like a simple breakdown. Hey, what is your first language? Is it Punjabi, for example? Let's see if we can find a way to easily translate things that we take for granted here in English into Punjabi, so that then it like you can go in, you're like, okay, yes, I know what this is now because I've had the chance to have all of this stuff given to me, resources that directly help them. But I think peers is the biggest one. As working in peer support, I understand so greatly how much of a blessing it is to just have a friend who understands, who is in the same spot. Thank you.
Thank you. Riley, the next question will be for you. One role of the president is to coordinate, review, enhance, and implement various strategies in order to improve the overall operation of NUSU. What is one strategy that you would like to bring to NUSU to improve its overall operation?
Awesome. I'm actually really happy you asked this. Being in the political science program, I've taken conflict resolution courses. I'm in negotiating. I've had a couple logic and reasoning courses in philosophy. It's always, you can't do it by yourself. Like you have to go to a team. You are only as strong as the people you surround yourself by. And if given the opportunity, I would love to go to the execs who are incoming. being able to talk to other others and be like, hey, I want to try and get this done. This is how I view it, but my understanding of the situation is only, it's limited to my experiences. Everyone else has so much to offer. Even if 50% of our experiences overlap, there's still a whole 50%, the rest of their opinion that I have no idea that I haven't even thought of. I could be way off the mark in whatever it is that I'm trying to implement just because this is how I see it. And by talking to people, talking through the specifics, talking through what you're thinking about, just being able to brainstorm out loud is the best way to take ideas and shape them and mold them into something that can be actionable.
Thank you. Keegan, would you like to answer the question?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if that's all right. So one of the main things, and you'll see it all through my platform, is student-led initiatives. I believe if we start bringing other students in, not paid executives, not volunteer directors, nothing like that, go to a class, ask the prof to talk to the class, take a survey, see what the students actually want to see their student union doing, not so much what we think they want to see. The best way for us to improve the student union and to make it so that, going back to my opening statement, it's Nipissing becomes somewhere we want to all come to. We have to use actual student input. We can't be using, well, this is what I think they want, so this is what we're going to do. Why we need to go ask them. And if elected, I will be ensuring that I use student-led initiatives to improve our NUSU. I will be using students' opinions straight up, not just the executives, not just the directors. I'll use all my resources because Nipissing has thousands of students. All of them have different opinions, and I'm going to value each and every one of them, and we will make all the choices that we have to as a group using those opinions to make NUSU better.
Thank you. Next up is general questions. Each candidate will be asked 2 questions that is picked out of a hat randomly. The other candidate has a choice to answer the question. However, they do not have to. We will start with Riley. As a representative of the student body, what do you believe is the best way to interact with students, and how do you plan to immerse yourself in the lives of Nipissing students to understand their needs better?
I think that once again, going back to just peer support and experiences being with students, the best way to figure stuff out is to sit down and talk with them. Go to the events, just be like, hey, I just want to know what's your opinion. If you could change anything, what's up? I think a huge thing would be setting up a table in the school, just having it open, having like a little box if maybe they don't want to say it out loud, but they want you to consider it later, like little recommendations. What are things you want to see change? What are things that you like? What are things that you don't like? What do you think we're doing that is really awful? What do you think we're doing that is pretty cool? And just trying to repeat the things that they like, maybe in a slightly different way or the exact same if it can be done. Trying to take a look at what they don't like and be like, okay, this didn't work. Why did it flop? Let's just not do it again and take that core value and pass it on to other things. I just talking to people like in person, trying to get to the people who don't usually speak up. You don't often see folks in the nursing program because they are so busy. Con Ed is busy trying to get to the people who are underrepresented but make up a large student population, and just going to their spaces and saying, hey, what's going on? What do you want to see change? Let's get it done. And trying to make it binding. We can talk all you want, but if you don't do anything, what was the point?
Thank you. Keegan, would you like to answer the question?
Yeah, if that's all right. So basically, my whole approach would be that I wouldn't change anything. And I know it's going to sound very odd to hear right off the hop, but I wouldn't. Realistically, as a student, you see the student issues. You interact with students as if you're nothing else. You're just another student walking up to them, conversing in a class, conversing, as Riley was saying, just having those conversations. But to approach them as anything more than a student, I believe is a mistake, because then you're going in as if, not as if you're better, but for lack of other words, something along those lines. You need to go in as a student, because at the end of the day, we're all students here. Whether you're the president of NUSU or a freshman coming in who's still waiting to turn 18 and nervous as all get out because their first big class is coming up. We're all students. We need to rely on each other side by side and just be there for each other. And that's the best way you're going to find out what our student union is doing right, doing wrong, is by just being a student and interacting with your fellow students and nothing else. Just be a student.
Thank you. The next question will be for Keegan. As a NUSU executive, what is one group on campus that you would like to build a better relationship with?
Honestly, I don't believe there should be just one group of students that we need to build stronger relationships with. In my personal experiences, and I hope no one takes offense to this, whether if there's past executives on here or even yourself, Joe, I don't want anyone to take offense to this. I don't find that NUSU in general has a great rapport with any real group of students. So I believe to start, we're going to have to go after the group as a whole and then start finding where the weaker connections are and then pushing a little harder to build those. But to start off, you have to build it as a whole. And if you don't start off building your communication and your kind of relationships with all the communities around the school, you're not going to be successful trying to build one or two. And like I said, I hope no one took offense to that. That was a little harsh on my end, and I do apologize, but that's just my personal experience with it.
Thank you. Riley, would you like to answer the question?
Yeah, would you mind, sorry, just repeating it, please?
Yep. As a NUSU executive, what is one group on campus that you would like to build a better relationship with?
I think kind of similar to Keegan, the whole of the community, because I mean, you are only as good as all of you are, really. The whole, you are as strong as your weakest link, you're as fast as your slowest runner, sort of thing. I want to try and find the students who don't go out to the events, those who don't speak, those who feel that maybe their voices don't need to be heard or don't know how to get it heard. Quite often marginalized students, but really, as like everyone needs to be listened to. Of course, though, as it goes, there are some people who are more comfortable coming forward and speaking and those who are not. So always trying to find who has something to say but isn't. That's why I really think that anonymous forums and stuff like that, giving people a way to talk without putting themselves out there because maybe they're scared or nervous or whatnot, I think that would be a really good way to find out what communities need help, what individuals need help, and making sure that we can see stuff like that happen.
Thank you. The next question will be for Riley. What are some contemporary issues within the NIPSing student body that you feel need to be addressed?
Sorry, student body as in the university as a whole, or in like the student union or students?
Students, as in like all students at the university.
Okay. Oof, that is a good question. I believe that there is some inequitable treatment between students, especially quite often in residence. Residence is huge. It falls under my equity. There are students who view one another not as equals, but just as, I don't know, gross in a dehumanizing manner. There needs to be more support for students who are put into vulnerable situations by other students because they don't view them as they should be, as other people. We are all students side by side. As Keegan said, we all need to be viewed in this way. It needs to happen that we're all safe, and if something goes wrong from one student to another, there needs to be a safety net that does not blame the individual coming forward. That is disgusting. That is dehumanizing. Totally wrong. Fast backwards, pardon the swearing, I tried to avoid it, but it's absurd. We need to make sure that when people speak up about things that happen between other students, we are listening. We're not making them share the same story multiple times to different people, especially if they're not comfortable with those people. You shouldn't have to say the same story more than once, especially people you don't know. We need to streamline. the reporting system on residents to make sure that all students are safe, especially from one another. You should not be worried that your peer might do something to you.
Thank you. Keegan, would you like to answer the question?
Yeah, can you repeat the first half of the question?
Sure. What are some contemporary issues within the NIPSing student body that you feel need to be addressed?
Yeah, so a big one, and while I do agree with Riley in the sense that a lot of students do get treated as if they're lesser than or in equal to other students, because that is definitely a big issue, and that's in any society really that you see that type of stuff. But I do agree with you there. I believe a big one is mental health supports around the campus in general. Yes, I get we're a small university and we do our best to get those mental health supports. I mean, all the student athletes are given their safe talk or yearly, I believe, where you have to go in and you have to learn about suicide prevention. You have to learn about the signs and all that. And that's great. But at the end of the day, it's not enough. And like I said, I don't blame anyone for us not having those resources. It's the time and age we live in where a lot of these mental illnesses are still just coming to light as serious as they are. Whereas our parents, they don't even see them as serious yet. And I believe that one of the biggest issues that needs addressed is how we handle those mental health issues. I don't like calling them issues, but I'm blanking on another word there. But and how we can use resources within the community, within the school that we already have, and how we can strengthen those so that those students don't feel alone, that they know that they do have those supports all around.
Thank you. And last question for general questions goes to Keegan. Keeping in mind that not every student will agree with every decision made, how do you plan on dealing with upset students who feel like their voice isn't being heard?
That's a great question. For those not familiar, I am a commissioner of a hockey league up here. So this is something I do deal with on a pretty regular basis where I make a decision about the league with my other commissioners and players don't always agree. Really, just like any decision you have to make, you have to almost treat it like a business decision. You have to think what's going to make the most people the happiest and what's going to benefit the most. And if you're making a decision that really only benefits 25% of people, why are you making that decision rather than a decision that could affect 60% positively? In terms of dealing with those disappointed students, it's really just understanding why they're upset, trying to find solutions on why or how to fix the issue they're upset about, why they don't feel they're being heard. And even if it's something as simple as free tissues during cold season not being given out. Well, it goes against budget. Well, how can we fix this so that we can incorporate it into our budget so that we can now make sure that they're still being heard while finding other solutions that we can incorporate into other issues that we can almost merge them together to almost with the two birds, one stone. That's kind of my motive on it, on how can you make as many happy as you can. And when they're disappointed, how can we fix that? Might not be today, but how can we fix it tomorrow? Thank you.
Thank you. Riley, would you like to answer the question?
Yes, please. Would you mind repeating it though?
Nope, not at all. Keeping in mind that not every student will agree with every decision made, how do you plan on dealing with upset students who feel like their voice isn't being heard?
Cool. So I think with this, the best thing kind of, as Keegan was saying at the end there, was if they say, hey, I'm upset that you did this. First of all, if you're secure in the decision that you made, then you need to be like, okay, this is why I did it. However, that does not mean that any of the concerns that they have can just be disregarded. You need to then be like, okay, so you are upset that I did this, or you think that this was ignored. Okay, let's take a look at why. Let's take a look at the reasons that could have caused that. Is this a common concern? Is it this one specific person? Generally, it's more than one. We're a big school. It's unlikely that one person in 5,000 is upset about a decision that you made. So, and we are all subject to failure. If we make a decision, it's like, hey, that was actually a really bad decision. Thank goodness people are willing to come to us and be like, hey, I don't like what you did. I feel like something was left out. I think that you did it wrong. I think that, et cetera, et cetera. So going back, the biggest thing, why is it that you feel that? Okay, what are the reasons that lead into that? What can we do about it? Can we do something next time? Is this a concern that can be covered under something else? Maybe the concern that NUSA doesn't offer a service that might be covered under SDS or something else significant. Just trying to find alternatives. And if those don't work, just making sure you do better next time. No one should be left out.
Thank you. Next section of the debate will be questions from the audience. Questions are to be sent by students to info@nusu.com from their student email. If someone sends in a question from another email, it will not be asked. Students, you have 2 minutes to send in your questions. Please put in your email who it's going to. For example, is it one person, to the position, or for both candidates? We will now take a short break and return at 7:29. Welcome back, everyone. Our first question from students will go to Riley. So Riley, the question is how you will best represent students, even if you don't agree with their beliefs.
I think that a big part of this is separating myself from what I believe and from what they believe. Just because I believe a certain set of things doesn't mean that they are right. And just because other people believe a certain set of things that I don't does not mean that they are wrong. Understanding this and being able to practice this, utilize this in the decisions that I make, and understanding what others have to say is, I mean, it's kind of a part of growing up. But when it comes to a role such as president, that is such a huge thing. I think just taking the time to sit back, recognize I am a flawed human being. My beliefs are not absolute. Frankly, nothing's really absolute. So just being able to know that they're coming from a good place, most likely. Let's see what we can do together. Let's collaborate. Let's find out what can come from the two of us.
Thank you. Before we continue, I just want to thank everyone for who sent in questions. Just due to how many we received, we will not be able to ask all of them. So the next question is for Keegan. The question is, you have said multiple times in your survey that you want, you have said multiple times in your surveys that you want the students to make decisions. Oh, sorry, one more second as we reword it. You have said multiple times in your platform that you want the students to make decisions. How will you make a decision where you cannot consult students? Sorry for butchering the question so much.
Yeah, no worries, Joe. Yeah, my platform is very much based on working for the students, making decisions for the students, and student-led initiatives, as mentioned. But when it comes to those decisions, such as, or where I will have to make them on my own, that's also not something that would be an issue for me because, like I already mentioned, I am a commissioner for a sports league up here where I've had to make those decisions on my own, where I couldn't necessarily go to one of the other commissioners and ask for the help. It's mostly having confidence in myself that I will know that in the end of the day, this will benefit the most students. This will help the student population, not just myself, because once there's any bias towards, well, this benefits me, might not benefit everyone, that's when I won't be able to make good decisions anymore. So when it comes to making decisions on my own, it's not so much that I wouldn't be able to because I want the student led. It's going to still be based on student opinion and output. It just won't be something that they're given a say in, if that makes sense. I might have worded that really horribly, and if so, I apologize deeply.
Thank you. The next question is for both candidates. Keegan, you will get to respond first. When the bar opens in your term, how will you make sure that it does not become prioritized over advocating for students? What will you do to make sure you don't promote binge drinking?
It's a great question. I'm going to probably try to implement something similar to the resident system where they give out the tips for safe drinking, they give out all that stuff, but they also monitor it as best they can. But personally in the bar, I'm not going to view that as something that's important. Obviously, it's something that brings jobs to the school community. It's something that's going to bring jobs to North Bay once it does finally open, and it will help our economy. But at the end of the day, we're students. It's same thing as with the student athletes. The student always has to come first. And if there starts to be issues arise where we're noticing that certain sets of students are spending more time going to the bar and overdoing it all the time, then there would have to be decisions made about our cutoff times, our cutoff amounts. And then realistically, school has to come first. So then we would also reach out to those students like in the most positive way we can and say something along the lines of, hey, I know that we see you at the bar all the time. That's great. We're glad you're coming out. You're enjoying yourself. You're staying safe, drinking somewhere safe. But how are you doing in this aspect of life? And kind of check in on them rather than seeing them come to the bar. Oh, cool, we have another person in here. We have, as a student union, we have to make sure the students are doing well. And we have to make sure that realistically their school is coming first, and that's going to be a top priority over the bar. And there will be decisions that have to be made if such situations arise.
Thank you. Riley, it's your turn to answer the question.
Awesome. Would you mind repeating it, please?
Sure. When the bar opens in your term, how will you make sure that it does not become prioritized over advocating for students? What will you do to make sure you don't promote binge drinking?
Okay. So I've worked in food and beverage for most of my working life. I've served, I've been a bartender, stuff like that. So it is quite easy to notice the signs of when someone is veering towards binge drinking and what type of atmosphere, the type of music, the type of attitude from the servers in the bar and whatnot that promote binge drinking, and those that promote more like 1 every 2 hours sort of thing, like something that just makes it casual and not a situation where like this is where you're going to want to get messed up and you're not going to be able to get home. And another nice thing is if you set up the bar properly with good staff, it is self-sustaining. You won't need to be trying to promote it over student advocacy because yes, you've taken the time to divert the resources towards that, but come the fall when everything's open, if you've taken all the measures to make sure it's set up properly, you won't have to worry about it being a hassle come that time. You'll be prepared. And as for advocacy, making sure that you are not promoting drinking. You can promote the space and be like, hey, come check out the student center. But I wouldn't want to say, come to the bar. That's a pretty explicit way to say, come drink, which by association can lead to some more unsavory things. Just being extremely conscious of the atmosphere you set up, the things you say, and how much you're catering.
Thank you. So once again, the next question is for both candidates. Riley will get the first opportunity to respond. And the question is, what is something you would change at Nipissing University?
Pretty solid question. I think that if I can choose two, the first, back to residents, the reporting system has to change. I've said quite a bit on that already, so I won't say much more, but just don't say the same story to multiple people. Make it easier for people to come forward. Don't make it scared. Make it so that they go to people that they know. Streamline that situation, put it in a policy right away, and make sure it's perfectly set up so that anyone who's coming into residence understands the repercussions and the safety nets that they have. The second part of that is hybrid learning, making sure that all students have the same chance at getting the same education, whether they're on campus or not, given that it can be set up in that way. I understand there are some courses that are damn near impossible to make online, but there are a lot that can be done hybrid, even if it's just as simple as having the Zoom set up and having the teacher sharing their PowerPoint presentation, just the student being able to log into that class and see that it's going to help them digest the information that they are paying a lot for, a lot more than just getting notes from a friend. Like I said, if you get notes, like lecture notes from a friend, or even being as a note taker, the notes that I give out, you're only getting a fraction of the experience that I'm getting. I'm trying, but you miss a lot by not being there.
Thank you. Keegan, you may now respond to the question.
Yeah, so one thing that, as I've already mentioned as well, that I feel Nipissing could do better is the mental health supports as well as educational supports. And by that, I mean, for the mental health supports, we need groups set up where, as Riley has mentioned, people who have gone through the same stuff, whether it be depression, anxieties, or something more serious, well, okay, not so much serious, but something else such as eating disorders, something where they can relate fully with the other person and give them the support they need to try to overcome the challenges that they're facing. When it comes to the educational aspect of it, I love academic advising. I love student accessibility. They've both helped me out greatly during my time here, as I've dealt with head injuries. I've dealt with broken elbow where I couldn't actually do school for couple weeks because I couldn't type during the online portion. They have helped me out immensely, and I love that they have done that, but we need to help them out. And one of the main ideas I would try to implement would be peer support groups in terms of education, whether it's finding tutors, TAs, asking them to volunteer some of their time, to sit down with a group, 4 or 5 students, make sure they understand the topics, make sure they understand what they're learning, rather than students going through the rest of their week thinking, what did I learn in that lecture? Just almost like a way to help them retain the information better, rather than making them have to try to remember it on their own with no support and just being lost.
Thank you. Last 2 questions are one for each, and we will begin with Keegan. So Keegan, your question is, how will you ensure that you consider intersectionality in the workplace?
Can you repeat that question again? Sorry.
Yep. How will you ensure that you consider intersectionality in the workplace?
You're saying sectionality, right?
Yes, intersectionality.
Sorry.
One
I'm not-
second.
Would you like a definition?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
I-
So that's okay. So it's intersectionality is the acknowledgement that everyone has their own unique experiences of discrimination and oppression, and we must consider everything and anything that can marginalize people, which includes gender, race, class, sexual orientation, physical ability, etc.
I also have messaged you in the chat the question as well.
Yes, I saw that. Thank you, Joe. So yeah, that's a great question. I'm so sorry. This is not like head injuries, sorry. Okay. Taking into consideration that everyone's different, they grow up different, and nothing about 2 individuals will ever be perfectly the same at all. And if it is, you're one in probably 7 billion. It's important to understand that their opinions, they don't derive from nothing. So if you're talking about, for example, with a student, you're just having a good chat and government comes up. It's important to understand that they're going to have a different opinion than you are, and that the way they were raised, the way they live their lives is going to be huge implementations on that. So to really kind of take into consideration everyone's intersectionality, it would be important to understand that not everyone was raised the same, and that just because you were raised one way in one type of household that's very similar to the other, there is still those differences, and you have to accept those differences. And as president, I would do my best to make sure that everyone, or that I take into consideration that everyone is different, and yet we still have to treat them the exact same, and it won't matter at the end of the day because we're all people and we just need to understand each other, and that'll do the most for us.
Thank you. The last questions are questions from students is for Riley. The question is a 2-parter. So how will you make sure to remain professional when you become passionate talking about certain subjects with the university? And how will you make sure that your personal views don't overwhelm your professional duty?
Okay, I'm gonna answer the first, and I might have to ask you to repeat the second later. With the first part, I do understand. I get rather passionate. I would apologize, but I'm not sorry for it. The professional aspect is a little difficult. I swear a bit, but I'm getting better. When passions get high, it just comes out. But I do recognize that keeping the 3 C's, cool, calm, and collected, is absolutely imperative. Going into every situation with a plan, knowing what you intend to say, knowing visualizing the outcome that you want from that situation, and finding the best way to get there that doesn't require having to get up in a huff or drop an F-bomb or something. Just making sure that you're honest, but within a good composure, like you're talking to your grandmother at a Thanksgiving dinner. What was the second part of that question? I'm sorry.
The second part was, how will you make sure that your personal views don't overwhelm your professional duty?
I have gone through my life knowing that my personal views are not views that everyone has, and kind of similar to intersectionality. Everyone's experience is so unique. All of our personal views are so different. So I can't expect anyone to have the same personal views, as similar as they may be. And so understanding that, and that every single person is an abundance of knowledge just because of the experiences they have, there is so much to learn from other people, and you're never going to learn from other people if you come off in a standoff way. Being professional is the best way to get there.
Thank you. We'll now go into our closing remarks. Once again, thank you to all the students who sent in questions. The candidates will now give their closing remarks, which will be 2 minutes each. Riley, you have the floor first.
I'm so sorry. I was choking on water. Bad timing. Okay, closing remarks. So, with all that I have done with Nipissing through peer tutoring, peer support, note-taking, volunteering with the Equity Center, New Base, being on NUSU, I've really thrown myself into Nipissing. And not because I felt that anything grand could come out of it, but just because by this point, Nipissing, it kind of feels like home. I've been here for 3 years. I live in North Bay full time. I really love this place. But like any place that you love and that you'd call home, you want to see it be the best that it can be. There are things that need to change here. It's good. It's not great, but it's good. But I firmly believe that given the year and whatever else may come after that, I think that the executive team, ideally with me there, would be able to take it to great. I think that we can do it. And we deserve to see the changes that could happen.
Thank you. Keegan, it is now your turn for your closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you. Basically, it's what I've already said. If elected, I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna make our student union for the students. It's not gonna be decisions solely made by the executives, by the board of directors. It's gonna be made by the student population. What's gonna benefit the students the most? How are we gonna help the students the most? And my motto is gonna stay the same from day 1 till day 365. It's gonna be for the students, by the students. Or you can reverse it even, by the students, for the students. It doesn't matter as long as it's understood that if elected, I'm going to come in, I'm going to take these fights that students don't want to bring up themselves, that they might feel better bringing up privately. And I'm going to bring them and I'm going to fight for them. And I'm going to fight for the student population to do just as Riley said, to make Nipissing great. And it's what the students deserve at our institution. And if elected, I will fight pretty much day and night, go over my time doing the work to make this work so that our students truly feel appreciated and truly know their voices are heard, which is the most important part to a student union. Thank you for your time tonight, guys.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who attended and watched online. Just a reminder that you can vote through your student email from Monday, March 21st to Tuesday, March 22nd. Make sure to go to nusu.com/elections to find out more information about how you should vote. If you have any questions or concern, you can also email elections@nusu.com. And on behalf of NUSU, have a good night, everyone.